Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. It is Todd. I decided, I had not much anything else really going on today. So I thought, let's go ahead and talk about money because we know that everyone loves money. And I'm like, well, who can I talk to that would really know a lot about financial freedom and the mindset around money? And I thought, well, Dave Ramsey's probably busy right now doing a radio show. So I thought I'll get the next best thing. So I'd like for everyone to be introduced to my good buddy. His name is John Richmond, yet he goes by GB, which I've never figured out why. So that's the first question I want to ask you. Yet, GB, welcome, and thanks for taking some time out of the day to join me on this Facebook Live.
I appreciate it, Todd. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and share the big secret nickname. And I do like the way that you introduced me. That was, I had nothing else to do, so let me scrape the bottom of the barrel and find out how I can fill my Friday afternoon.
Well, it's not the bottom of the barrel.
Let's get Richmond on the line.
Yeah, it's not the bottom of the barrel. Plus, I bet Dave Ramsey would love us talking about scraping the bottom of the barrel when I said you were right below him. So,
yes. Yeah. Well, it's all on your perspective.
That is true. So tell me about where GB came from, because I've never asked that before.
GB actually, I think it stands for Goodbye Money Stress, which is my new company, but actually it doesn't, but it does flow well together, which is nice. So actually, as you know, many boys, when they're growing up and they're playing sports, they take on the persona of the sports heroes that are in their era, right? So if we were playing basketball, we were Dr. J or Magic or Bird or, et cetera. So my cousin and I used to golf quite a bit, and we took on the persona of the golfers of the day and, the main golfer of the day. Back then I had hair. And it was more blonde. And so he called me the Golden Bear. And for those who are golfers know, the Golden Bear is the nickname for Jack Nicklaus. My golf game in no way replicated his at all. But we would play for huge stakes. So we would play what we called our U.S. Open. There was a public course in Jackson. We always played the back nine. So we'd always go in and pay. We never snuck out. But if the starter said, hey, I got groups making the turn, you guys got to go off the front nine. No, that can't happen because the back nine is what we have to play. So we'd sneak off the back nine then and play a match play for huge stakes. We were playing for a big gulp, for those of you that are old enough to remember the big gulp, 7-Eleven, and a candy bar. And so he would call me Golden Bear. And there was a golfer, for those of you that are real golf folks, Larry Mize was a guy that won the Masters in 1986. He had about a 70-foot chip in and beat Greg Norman. And so my cousin's name is Mike, so he became Mize. And so it was Mize and Golden Bear going out. Well, then when we would start playing sports that were faster, like basketball and hockey and things like this, it shortened to GB. And so most people are like, gee, well, how does that go with John? I'm like, well, it doesn't. And Richmond, no, there's no tie-in to the name. It's just a nickname from when we played golf together when we were, 14, 15, 16 years old, all the way up into our early 20s. So that's where it comes from.
I love that. So GB, you looked at yourself, you're almost future pacing yourself into the Goodbye Money Stress, which is your new company, as you mentioned. And so you apparently didn't make it as a pro in golfing. So you got into some financial advising there, right? And then you did that for a long time.
My aspirations of being a PGA elite were quickly, succumbed to the 20 handicap that I am. So I decided, okay, that's not going to work. I could have caddied, I guess, but, So my brother and I, way back 28 years ago, we started a financial planning firm, which he still runs to this day. And we were both licensed, and we did with Series 7 and the whole shebang. So we did financial planning for people. But how we started it, Todd, is we noticed that there was a hole in the education that people received in financial literacy. Even this is way back in '94. And so we actually started the company. It was called Richmond Brothers Educational Seminars. And we taught educational seminars about financial literacy because we'd both gone to the same public school, Northwest Community School. Then he went to, it's called Jackson College now. It was Jackson Community College back then. Then he went on to Michigan State, and I went on to the University of Michigan. And neither of those places was there anything with financial literacy taught. And generally speaking, most parents do not teach financial literacy. It's the one thing, there's two things that the parents don't usually talk about with their kids, right? It's usually sex and it's usually money. And when you get older, what do you usually fight about in a relationship? It's usually one of those two different things. And so our system, if you will, the educational system, and then also our upbringing, our child rearing, none of this is ever really discussed. Now, the state did just sign, we were the 14th state. Michigan it was announced last week, or earlier this week maybe, but just recently it was announced that now financial literacy is going to be a required component in high school for kids. Now, they don't have any of the details, as far as I know, like what's the curriculum like, who's teaching it, how are they going to pay for it, so forth. But so that's wonderful. But there's a huge hole in our in the way we send people out into the world. And that's why in America, and it depends on the study you look at, and you'll hear Ramsey talk about this all the time, or people that are in this world, that they quote upwards of 78%. I've seen it as low as 54, but either way, somewhere between 54 and 78% of all Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That is regardless of how much money they earn. And I've been on that spectrum. I've made in the top 2% of income in my career, and I've been way at the bottom in my career. And you spend to where your income is. And it's not that you spend frivolously. You just, as you make more money, you increase the things that, you're sacrificing when you're not making as much. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm going to try to, now maybe I get a little bit nicer car, nicer clothes. Maybe I go out to eat 2 or 3 times a week. And we had a family of 7 with 5 kids, my wife and I. So, which I can't imagine now with the way grocery prices are. But you just sort of spend to where you're at. And so if you don't have an intentional plan, and I use fitness a lot because I think fitness really correlates well to this, is that, if you just go to the gym and you just show up, but you don't really have a plan or an intentionality of what you're doing, you can find yourself a year, 2 years down the road and you really haven't made much benefit. And so what I'm trying to help people do is, one is give them education so that they can understand all the different components and how they sort of work and interrelate with each other, and then help people with that intentionality. And so there's 2 divisions to my new company. There's one division that is going to be teaching workshops, financial workshops, educational. There's no advertising. There's no sales pitch. I should say the only thing that's mentioned is if someone wants more personalized help, they can come to me and I will help them on a personal level. But the workshop itself is just education. You can take it. It's not like you don't have the information available already. I mean, if you Google financial literacy or anything in that realm, you're going to get about a gazillion hits on Google, right? So we have the information. The issue is that we don't take the steps to make it happen for whatever reason. And a lot of times people will need accountability to help them stay on track because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so it's just like having a coach in any of the other disciplines, whether it's a sports discipline, whether you're in a business executive and what you do, right? Helping people that are very smart, are very good at what they do, but it's nice to have a fresh set of eyes looking at something, a new set of ideas, and someone that can keep them accountable, that is not just a yes person to say, whatever you say. No, I'm going to challenge you on that. And what about this? Or have you thought of this? Or, hey, remember we said we were going to do this? We need to stay on track. And so that, so the workshop can be taught at anywhere where there's a group. So it could be taught at a business for employees. It could be taught at a church for their congregation or parish, could be taught at a nonprofit for their donors, a service organization, or just the general public schools could be done there as well. And then the second division is the one-on-one consultation where people are like, hey, you know what? It'd be nice if I could get some extra help just on my personal level. Would you do that? And so that is Goodbye Money Stress. So I think it's an enormous hole that even in all of these years, 28 years later, has never been filled. And that's why we as Americans continue to really struggle with just the day-to-day living. And it's not that you have to, all of a sudden put these constraints on and I can't move and I'm, the budget word and thing. No, it's what I always tell people about fitness, because I was very much involved with fitness and still am. It's like if I take a day off, if it's an intentional day off, I'm not being lazy. It was a planned day off or a planned light day in the gym, or I do a lot of running with guys here where I live. And we may just say, hey, today is going to be a light day and it's going to be very short. You almost don't break a sweat. It's like, okay, but that's what the schedule calls for. So that's what we do. Same thing in this realm is that, oh, you know what? I can't give up my strawberry chai smoothie with the strawberry boba and the sweet cream on top, which is my wife's favorite. So I know it. I gotta have those. Those are $8.47.
It sounds like it might be your favorite.
No, I'm a boring guy from that standpoint. It's like hot chocolate. That's it. No coffee, none of the other extravagant things. Just give me some hot chocolate. Maybe even some whipped cream, depending on what's going on. So yeah. So, but even if that's your thing, the thing you don't want to get, okay, well, as long as you can manage and hit all of the important things, right, that you're able to do, as Ramsey will say, the four walls. And as long as you're able to manage and do some savings and all of these, there's no reason you can't put that in there. Now, you may have to delay it for just a little bit of time, but there's no reason you can't put that in there and say, yeah, that's what I'm going to do because that's one of my pleasures. And I'm going to budget that into my, the way I intentionally assign my money to each thing that I want to assign it to. And what's amazing, and there's certainly exceptions, but in America, the vast majority of us are not poor, we're broke. And you do a lot of traveling, so you see that as you travel, especially when you go outside the country. And so most people will find several $100s that they just miraculously spend when they actually sit down and intentionally look at their dollars. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't no idea that I was spending that much here or there. So it's really just stepping through this process. And I use a variety of different things. I use some Ramsey information and tools. National Financial Educators Council is another group that they're really, really good. And I use a lot of their information. So it's just trying to help people. And which is what I enjoy doing. I taught most of the seminars when we did our business back in the 90s. And as we grew, that's really what my role was. I ended up going into actually teaching 4 years at high school. So it's one of the things I like. And I think I'm pretty gifted at is just relating to people and doing, having fun with it. Mm-hmm. It's a serious topic, no question about that. And that's why goodbye money stress. Because when you have that stress, it affects, as an employee, it's going to affect your ability to concentrate and be productive. And from an employer standpoint, turnover ratio and retention ratio, and again, productivity and profitability. And churches, if people don't have dollars, it's hard for them to keep the churches going and their tithing and just all of these things. And, if I did, hey, a raise of hands, how many of you know someone that's had an argument or had stress about money? It affects your emotional, your mental, your physical. It really can weigh on you. So that's what I'm trying to do is to help people say, hey, let's work through some steps. It may take us a little bit of time, but that's okay. You and me, we've talked about it before, right, Todd? We've made some major blunders.
Yes, we have.
And we're still here. We're still going. You can pull yourself out of it. And that's what I'm trying to help people do.
I love it. So I want to hit on a couple of things real quick. So number one, it's crazy to think that back in 1994, you were discussing the same thing you're discussing today, which is mindset. It's not being taught in the schools. The parents aren't teaching either. And it also comes to the mindset. And then you brought in the word fitness, which is something that most people don't like doing either. So when you add in mindset, fitness, teaching, and money there, it's almost like a quadruple whammy of, okay, I'm getting away as far as I can from this conversation because it makes me uncomfortable. And so my question for you is this. Let's say you're someone out there who has had it all or has nothing and desires either go to the extreme of, hey, I have a lot of money, or man, I like to have as much money as I can. I'm set pretty well for life. What are some tips and tricks out there for people to understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and that it's not doom and gloom and maybe short-term doom and gloom? Yet eventually, I believe if someone follows your advice, can finally find the light in the tunnel.
Yeah, well, the key there, and these are going to be the two worst words. You want the two words.
I do.
Words you can possibly ever hear especially as an American, is, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let me brace myself here.
Okay,
I'm ready.
You want to get a pen ready. Delayed gratification, right? Because that's what you're really talking about, and it really applies across the board. Doesn't matter if you're making several $100,000 a year, or it doesn't matter if you're really scraping to get by. I may have to delay some things that I was either spending money on and or things that I'm using right now. Are there things that I can cut back and delay my gratification? Not forever, just knowing that I'm going to do it for a period of time until, and you mentioned it, it's the emotional mindset, it's the psychology, right? We all have that from how we were raised. Even though our parents probably, maybe yours did, but most parents don't talk about money. But right. Even if the parents, if they didn't talk about money, you still understood how money was handled in the household, and that's the habit you formed. That's exactly what you grew up with as you watched how money was handled. So it's understanding the psychology, it's understanding the emotional attachment to money. Why, when I get stressed, do I spend just impulsively? Or let's use fit, right? Why do I eat? Because I'm all of a sudden stressed. I mean, what's going on there? And why, if I eat bad, do I tell myself, well, I'm not going to work out today because I ate bad? How do I connect those two? Because they're not connected. I can still eat bad, but still go get my workout in, type of thing.
Absolutely.
So the same thing with money is you're really looking at, am I going to have, how is it working for you right now? How's it working for you so far? It's a great question to ask yourself, because if you're like, well, I don't want to make any changes. Okay, well, what path are you on and where's that track leading you? It's a very simple question that you can look at and see. And if you're like, from where I was here to where I am now, if I go back a year, 5 years, whatever it happens to be, to where I'm at right now, have I improved? And if I haven't, then it's like, all right, then obviously the definition of insanity, as many of us know, is if I keep doing the same things over and over and over, but I expect a different result. So what I'm looking at is like, if I'm not real happy with my current situation, or I'm not real comfortable with it, or I don't really have a good feeling for where I'm at, and I want to go over to that point over there, how do I get there? And what are the obstacles I can run into? And if you understand the obstacles, then you're much better suited to be able to go around and over and understand those obstacles and how they're going to impact you and affect you. And so that's where you're getting into the mindset, the behavior, the psychology of money, my habits, my emotional attachments, all of these different types of things. And then it's a matter of saying, all right, now I need to find out where I'm spending my dollars right now. What's going on when my paycheck comes in? Do I have more month left than paycheck? Oh, that's a problem. Or is it I have paycheck left, but I'm not exactly sure where it all went. I knew I had to pay certain things. So those are the things that we just sit and look at together. And then again, in the workshop, I'm going to provide education about those things. And in one-on-one consulting, I'm going to sit with you and we're going to walk right through it together. And you'll be amazed at, educate. Knowledge is empowering.
Absolutely.
So once you have the knowledge, and once you it's not only just the knowledge of, again, it's because we can Google all of these things or use the new AI,
Chat GPT,
whatever it is. Yes. But it still doesn't help me understand the emotional aspect I have in me and the reason I react the way I do to certain stimuli and or circumstances. And so that's really what you're hiring, getting the education for in a workshop, or you're hiring a person like me to help you do, is to say, hey, let's look at this. Let's dig into it. Let's see what's going on. Let's figure out how. And a lot of people, again, and this was the same back in 94, 95, 96, when we were really doing the seminars a lot, to now, is more people spend time planning their vacations each year than they do actually planning anything with their money. And so that's all I'm helping you do is take those steps that you already are aware of, but for whatever reason, we're just not doing it quite yet.
Well, I know from experience that you've helped me quite a bit in the past, so thank you. So if I know that you can help me, you more than likely can help anyone else watching this. So how can
yes, that was like, whew. I'm telling them. Even my wife was like, wow, I can't believe you helped. WTF. Who is Todd
Hallelujah. Who is Todd Foster and why Todd Foster? So how can more people find out more about you and your company?
The best place is just to go to our website, which is at, the www like normal, and then goodbye, and that's spelled with the E on the end of it, just like normal, like you're waving goodbye, goodbyemoneystress.com. So goodbyemoneystress.com. And there you'll be able to read about a little bit about my journey. I shared a little bit here today, but you'll be able to read more about my journey and see all the different aspects of what we have going with the individual and with the workshops themselves, and then the individual consultation. And then my wife is, we're real big on automation and to try to help just to prevent those overdrafts and the bank fees and the credit card fees and make your payments on time and help keep your credit score up and, all of these things. So my wife actually does, and she's the one that does that. She's more the technology person than I am. So she does, we have that as part of it as well, where people can, she'll help walk them through automation if that's something that they're interested in.
Awesome. So once again, it's goodbyemoneystress.com, goodbyemoneystress.com.
Yep.
This is John GB Richmond.
There you go.
And we now find out that he wasn't the golden boy. He was a golden bear. So thank you so much for joining me. I trust everyone got something out of this. I know I did. And thanks again, GB. I appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, God bless you. Thanks for everything that you do and helping me, because you've helped me as well with your executive coaching and your business coaching. And I appreciate being able to share this with everybody so that they can take the necessary steps if they're so inclined.
All right. Once again, goodbyemoneystress.com. Appreciate you. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
You too, buddy. See ya.